All right, mate. So we're going to go in 3, 2, 1. Lions Lounge Lockdown, episode 12. Big Danny Dichio, all the way from Toronto in Canada. Thanks for joining us, Dan.
No problem. Thanks for having me on.
Appreciate your time. So we're going to talk about your career, your time at Millwall. You said off camera about 18 months in total. How did you first join the club? Originally on loan, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it was towards the end of I think it was a 02 or 03 season, and I was kind of in limbo at West Brom. I'd fallen out with the gaffer, the manager there, Gary Megson, and I just wanted to play. My family had moved back and forth from London when I was in West Brom. I was still commuting back from my London house to West Brom in the Midlands, and then my family finally moved up to the Midlands, and I'd fallen out with a gaffer again. And Ray Wilkins, who was my ex-coach at QPR, and Dennis Wise, who was from the same area as me in West London, Shepherd's Bush, contacted me and said, "Look, would you fancy coming down? We're having some problems scoring goals." Or I think they had an injury to who was the big Dutch or Belgium striker? Was it Bobby someone?
Bob Peters.
Bob Peters was struggling, or he had an injury. So they said, "Would you fancy coming down for a month just to help us out?" And I said, "You know what? I'd love to. I'd love to come down." I'd obviously got a good rapport with both of them, with Wisey and Ray Wilkins, who was a mentor to me, and that was it. I came down, spent I think about a month to 6 weeks on loan, scored a fair few goals, and they decided to make the move permanent if they could come to an agreement with West Brom.
What's your first impressions of the club being there under Wisey? How did they sell the club? I know they probably didn't have to sell it to you too much, but what did they say to you about the club and sort of things to get you in?
They basically said, look, there was a really good group of lads down there that were very together. They couldn't offer much in the sense of we've got a wonderful training ground or we've got an unbelievable stadium. And I said, to be quite honest, I'm not interested in that. I want to come and play, and I want to come and play for a group of staff that are honest and upfront with me and can give me the opportunity to play football, because I've been in and out of the team at West Brom. I knew a couple of the boys that I've either played against or played with at other clubs that were in the Millwall dressing room already. And that was basically it. I drove down to South London, and they put me in a hotel for the night. And then after about a week or so, I started staying with Timmy. Timmy put me up in his house because his family were back in Australia. So I settled in really nicely, and I got to grips with the squad, and the actual players on the team were very welcoming. And as I said, I knew the staff already, and I thought we had a really tight unit there in those days.
Yeah, you was rooming with Timmy Cahill. Yeah, what was he like, Timmy?
Well, no, I was staying with Timmy, so I stayed in the hotel for a couple of nights. Then I was staying at my mum's, but my mum lives all the way over in West London, so it was a long drive to get to the training ground. So in the end, I stayed. Timmy said, "Look, I can put you up at my house. My family are back in Australia," so I stayed with Timmy at his house, at his mansion. That had a lot of room in it, so that helped me a lot in settling in.
Yeah. So you walk straight into a team that's sort of been promoted in 2001, 2002. The following season, just missing out on the playoffs, and then we're looking to go again the season you joined, and we go on this spectacular cup run. As you said, was it Telford? You remember playing in that game? 2-0 away at Telford. They got called off about 6 times before I actually went ahead, I think.
That was right. Yeah, we had a lot of rain, and their pitch weren't the best. Typical non-league ground. It was heavily waterlogged. Even when we played the eventual game, we knew it was going to be a tough game for us. But as I said, with our team spirit that we had a lot of players that had played in and around the second division, first division anyway. So I thought we were very comfortable in going there and getting the result.
So originally you joined on loan. I think you scored 5 in 5 on loan.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, hit the ground running. A typical Millwall player, really. It was almost like it was a perfect fit. You had a lot, obviously, scored 5 in 5 is no mean feat. He was very good in the air. You had some great service coming in from on the wings, Paul Ife especially.
Yeah, I love playing with Ife. So I think he was one of, if I go throughout my career, And I played with a lot of good wingers. Obviously, as you said, being a big target man, a striker, usually teams either purchased or brought me in for a reason because they played with wingers that like to get balls in the box. But Ice was definitely up there in the top 5 wingers I played with throughout my career because he was so unpredictable as well. And that's what I thought really made him efficient, especially in that final phase area, which we call it, in taking fullbacks on, getting crosses in, getting goals, and he was a delight to play with and a top man off the field as well.
Yeah. We've had a chat with Ice, and he really is a top man. So let's talk about this FA Cup run. Obviously, you didn't score against Telford. 4th round against Burnley, you get the only goal of the game. I think that's from an Eiffel cross, wasn't it? Another bullet header.
Yeah, that was the goal. Was it Burnley at home? That was from Muzzy. That was from Kevin Muscat.
Oh, was it?
Yeah, that was from Kevin Muscat cross. He crossed it, and he was another player that could put in a beautiful cross on a sixpence. He done that numerous times for me during my Millwall career. But that was a closer game. But I'm not sure if we played Tranmere before that or Tranmere after.
Tranmere was after. Tranmere was, and then Muscat hit the bar for the penalty and ended up going to a replay, didn't it?
That's right, and we had to go back up to Tranmere. But I just remember that Burnley game being, I think it was televised on BBC on a Sunday, was it? And there was a lot of pressure on us because we'd obviously had a favourable draw, and people were saying, Mill got lucky, they're at home now against Burnley, or not playing too well, not the best of teams, they got a chance. I think because we've been delayed against Telford, the draw had already been made as well, and we had Tranmere in the next round if we could beat Burnley. So there was a lot of pressure on us at home, and we felt that within the team. It was strange because, as I said, we had a good team spirit. We hammered each other in the locker room, but when we went out on the field, we were like a very, very tight unit, good team spirit within us. We would drop the gloves and scrap with anyone. We would try and play with anyone as well. We weren't all the most technically gifted players, but as I said, we'd always lay it out on the field. That's how just Wisey used to treat our team talks, our team meetings before the game, and we went out there against Burnley, and I thought we were pretty flat, but we managed to get the win in the end. It was a late goal, I think, good cross from Muzzy, and I just remember the elation, not only with the players but with the fans as well. It was a good crowd that day at the Den, and we managed to nick the 1-0 win.
Yeah, and after that, obviously, so we went on to Prenton Park for the replay after we drew home to Tranmere.
Tranmere game was a fantastic game because we were disappointed that we drew at home with Tranmere. They were a little bit lower than us in the league. It was, again, a lot of pressure on us on BBC Match of the Day. And we kind of flattered to deceive that day. So we didn't perform well, but we knew we still had another chance. And going up to Tranmere, Prenton Park, it was going to be a difficult game. And again, a terrible field that I think they made even worse. Not that it affected us because we weren't a team that really played with the ball on the floor, even though we could do. And I remember Chopper scoring a great goal and Timmy scoring a lovely goal as well. Both goals that I was involved with. But I think Chopper scored like a volley that day that nestled in the top corner. It was just like, it was a real good feeling. One of the games of my career that I could remember, that it just felt so good. The elation again of going through to the semi-final of the FA Cup final. A thing that I'd never managed in my career, and I was coming close towards the end of my career, and it's every boy's dream to play in the FA Cup or get through to a semi-final, and we did that. So as I said, the elation after that game and the bus journey on the way back home was lovely.
And then almost, I was going to say the perfect draw, really. Obviously, you wanted to try and avoid, I would say we want to try and avoid the big hitters, obviously, in the semis, which we did, and we ended up playing one of your former clubs, Sunderland, at Old Trafford.
Yeah, it was funny because I remember at the training ground, we were watching the draw. I think we'd finished training. It was a light session, and we were all in the calf talking and just having a joke as we usually do. And we were, I think either Muzzy or someone had set up a book, and he was taking bets on who we would get. And the odds on was Man United. The other one was Arsenal, and the last one, no one was taking bets on Sunderland. And I think Sunderland came out first of the draw. So we're all sitting there and we're all like banging the tables going, please, 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 please. the ball comes out and it's Millwall, and we just thought we erupted in that training ground in the CAF that day, because it was odds on that we were going to get one of the big hitters. The balls were either hot and they were going to draw out, they were going to separate the two big teams, but we managed to get Sunderland and at Old Trafford, which was an amazing feat for us, because we knew, and I'm sure Sunderland thought it at the same time, that it was a 50-50 chance that we had in getting through to the FA Cup final.
Yeah, we beat them twice that season in the league, home and away. So I suppose the law of averages, they probably think when they owe us, they've got to do a number on us, but they didn't. Timmy Cahill scores early. You had a good game that day. I remember towards the end, you had an edit, then you had a chance to score a second. Their goalkeeper saves it. But how'd that feel for you playing against your former club, getting one up on them?
Yeah, well, it was kind of bittersweet for me, because I'd spent probably 4.5 years at Sunderland, the most I've ever kind of spent at a club after QPR, where I grew up. And it was a difficult time for Sunderland. They were going through a little bit of a transition as well. Mick McCarthy was in charge of them. Obviously, he had Millwall ties as well, because he'd been at Millwall for a long time, and he's a lovely guy I got a lot of respect for. And there was obviously players on the team as well that I played with. But at the end of the day, when you're a footballer, you're going out on the field, whether you're playing a pickup game with your mates or you're playing non-league or wherever you are, you're going out on that field to beat your opponents. And even though it was an old club of mine, I'd always had a good record of scoring against old teams that I was playing against. The win and the victory afterwards was a little bit soured because of Sunderland, who I have a lot of affection with, a lot of respect for as well. And even at the end, going around after the game, a lot of the Sunderland fans stayed and clapped us and were saying congratulations to myself as well. And fans that I even remembered from their travelling support, because they travel in such big numbers, and they were very respectful and wished us all the best. But it was a little, as I said, bittersweet as well. But going back to our fans, the amount of fans we took up to Old Trafford that day, and I had a lot of mates in the crowd, I had family up there as well, and it was just great to see the Mill support come out that day and get the victory, and everyone with a smile on their faces, recognising that we were going. Was that being our first FA Cup final appearance, Dan?
Yeah.
That was, yeah.
First ever. What was the celebrations like in the dressing room after and amongst the group?
You know what? It was strange, because I still didn't feel that we recognised that we'd got through to an FA Cup final. It was kind of, we were in a daze a little bit, and obviously before the game, it was funny because Wisey and Ray always come up with different team talks, and Wisey was the guy that would try and get stuck into you and say, look, we're going to do this, we're going to get stuck into him, do that. And Ray was the mediator. He was the guy that come in very calmly and sat everyone down and said, look, we're going to try and do this tactically or what. But on that day, Wisey come out, he hadn't been around, he'd obviously got changed, but then he come out with a tray of little shots for us. I think there were shots of brandy or whatever it was. And he said, fellas, we've done ever so well in getting here, and I want to toast you all. So he made us all take a little shot. I'm sure it was rum, or it might have been port, or whatever it was. It was only a little shot to take a quick swig before we went out to the game. So afterwards,
that was before, a little livener before the game.
The livener before the game. What's going on here? Like, it was actually a really good tactic from him, because he knew that everyone was obviously nervous. A lot of boys had never played in this stage of the cup final, including myself, and he just wanted to settle everyone down. He was obviously an experienced guy. Him and Ray had been there, done it, and he just wanted to settle everyone down. So everyone kind of looked around at each other to see who was the first one to pick up a little cup, and he done it. I think Timmy or Muzzy said, "Fuck, right, let's go." Swigged it back, and that was it. We were all out there. We didn't even do much of a tactical talk. We did that all through the week, and we went out there. It was a very physical game, if I remember. There was a lot of harsh tackles going on. There was a few injuries here and there. Players had to be carried off, but we were both, just showed you the commitment level of both teams wanting to get through to the FA Cup final.
Yeah, like you said, you was all good players, but no more for really being a very physical, determined, but group of hard fuckers, really. Let's have it right. You, Denzel, Muscat, Wisey. What was that like to train with them boys day to day? Was it intense in training as well?
It was, because that's how we played on a weekend, and that's how Wisey wanted us to train. And if someone kind of shirked a tackle or wasn't putting it in, it wasn't just Wisey calling people out, it was other players within that group. But we had a massive amount of respect for each other as well. And whether you'd had an argument or a row with someone on the training pitch, it was all forgotten about, either through a handshake or in the calf or the changing room afterwards. And I played for teams where there've been rows on the training ground and fields, and it kind of festered. But at Millwall, it always got sorted out straight away. And I give credit to Ray and Wisey, and also to the group of players that we had back then that were like stand-up people. You know, they said how it was, and there was no beating around the bush. There was no room like whispering or fucking he's doing this. It was very straight up, and that's what I liked about our team at Millwall.
Did they ever boil over in the training ground? See players going at it at Millwall?
Not more than other clubs I played at, because as I said, there was a huge amount of respect for people. The banter was always on fire. We'd always hammer each other. There was always banter going on. There was always people cutting people's clothes up, burning clothes, new players coming in that had no idea what was going to be going on. But as I said, there was an honesty within our group that everyone was equal. Everyone was level. Even Timmy, who was our little superstar, who was going to go on to bigger things, we kept him intact. He probably bore the brunt of it, to be quite honest, but he took it all in his stride.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
A little bit of Kale Clobber getting cut up here and there.
Yeah. It was funny. There was one keeper that come in. I think it was Andy Marshall, that come in.
Yeah.
And we signed him because I think Big Tone had an injury for a long time. We had another keeper that come in that struggled a little bit, and Marshall came in, and on his first day, the boys were like, "Fuck, we're gonna get this guy. He's having himself a little bit." So he's in the careful. He's getting some treatment, and the keepers always go out a little bit early. And I think even Wisey was involved with this. It was Wisey, Muzzy was always involved as well, and they took his clothes and they went out onto the training field where the keepers start doing their warm up, and on the training pitch, they put a mannequin in the 6-yard spot in the goal, and they put his clothes on it on the mannequin.
What was it, Bastard Clobber?
Yeah, so it was horrible club, but he thought it was like top gear. It was like Hugo Boss, whatever it was, Gucci, and we're all in our tracksuits and whatever, just coming in casual. So they put all his clubber on this mannequin, and they taped it up, and I think Wisey even lit it a little bit as well at the bottom, and it didn't light properly. And he's gone out for his warm up, and he's absolutely lost his shit, Andy Marshall. This is a professional club, and we were just starting our warm up. We were in hysterics, and that was just part of what we did every day. From Wisey cutting Darren Ward's jeans because he was having himself Wardy as he did. He thought he was the South London Beckham, but he was nowhere near it. Just had to take it. It was from anything, from that kind of banter, whether it be with your clothes, whether it be with just people mucking around with your car. It was just everyday stuff that kept you on your toes, but actually added to the team spirit that we would have when we went out on the pitch for that game at the weekend or midweek, that we would fight for each other.
Did he wear it in the end? Well, not wear it. I mean, like, did he accept it in the end, Marshall?
Yeah, he had to. His bottom lip dropped for a couple of days, but in the end, he said that's part of the banter. He wasn't used to it being at certain other clubs, and he had to get used to it very, very quickly. He actually done well for us in the end. I think he actually played in the FA Cup final for us.
You mentioned him there. He's obviously, you would have been around him a lot growing up. Ray Wilkins, we've heard a lot of good stories during this series about Ray, just what a legend he was, what a gentleman he was, the clobber he wore, how good he smelt, but he still had a bit on the pitch as well.
Yeah, he did. It was I knew it because I obviously grew up at QPR where Ray had played. I played with Ray at a really young age, and he was towards the end of his career. He'd gone away and finished his career somewhere else. But then they kind of brought him back in as the gaffer, as a manager at QPR when Jerry Francis left. So as I said, he was a mentor to me, a guy that I respected a lot, I looked up to, I listened to. And being a young lad from West London at 17, 18, where you kind of think you know everything. There's not a lot of people that you actually sit down and listen to and respect a lot, and he was one of them. A guy that would pull my ear if I needed it, kick me up my ass if I needed it, but also put my arm around me and be. We used to call him Uncle Ray. He was just that type of guy. He was very thorough, very honest, and a great guy. And so disappointed when he passed away a couple of years ago, because he meant a lot to me as a person, but also to my career as well. But boy, you could still play even in the training sessions. You tried to get near him, and he was like 2 steps ahead of you, just with his pass, his touch. He would send you for a hot dog if you were going to tackle him, and he would just knock it past you or nutmeg you. And the boys loved him.
Yeah, so they spoke very, very highly of him. We got to the FA Cup final, obviously. You were suspended for that, so you missed out. That must have been obviously very frustrating. We've heard bits from Tony Warner that well, let's talk about the build up in general as well. But Tony Warner, obviously, you, him, and Muzzy ended up out the night before the final. But was it obviously it would have been disappointing to miss out? Did you really? Was that because of a booking at the Sunderland game, or was it further down the line?
No, it was a game in the league. We played against Nottingham Forest, and I'd had a little scuffle with Wes Morgan, who'd gone on to play for Leicester City, and it was handbags at most. We'd just been up for a ball, and he connected with the back of my head. I connected with him. He said with my elbow, and we squared up to each other. He pushed me over, and the ref didn't even hesitate. He just sent us both off. So after the game, Ray said, "Fuck, you're in a bit of trouble." I said, "Why is that?" He said, "Well, 2 weeks' time, we're playing in an FA Cup final. This could affect your place in the lineup if you're suspended." So I went, "No, it can't be." So obviously news had gathered, and a couple of days later, it worked out that I would miss the FA Cup final. So we tried to appeal, tried to contact the referee, and he was an older referee, absolute tosspot. Wouldn't have none of it. Wouldn't even listen to it. Wouldn't even look at the review or anything like that. And it was probably one of the hardest moments in my career, because, as I said before, it was Millwall's first time in the FA Cup final, but it was also a dream of mine from a young age, from watching the FA Cup final on a Saturday afternoon, the build up, watching it from the morning, seeing all the build up to it. It was a dream of mine to play in an FA Cup final, and this was my only chance I was probably going to get to play in it. And that referee took that opportunity away from me, and I'll never ever forgive him for that. Not only because personally I missed out on a dream, but also because it affected us as a team as well, with Muzzy being out, Big being out, myself being out. We were already behind the 8 ball a little bit, because we were obviously playing against the Galacticos of Man United with Ronaldo and Giggs and all them boys in the team, and we were little old Millwall trying to punch above our weight and trying to get a result at probably the biggest cup game in the history of the world, like the FA Cup.
I'd agree, mate. You know, not just because I'm talking to you, but we missed a few players that day due to different circumstances, suspension. But yeah, obviously that day, you was the biggest miss, in my opinion, because we still had Neil Harris, but we needed that target man to try and make the ball stick, because we didn't get forward on many opportunities anyway. How did that? I mean, you would have been gutted, wouldn't you? All the build up, all the suits, all the hype, all the press. Was you just like, fuck this?
Yeah, you know what, Dan, as well, it was, as I said, it was probably the toughest moment in my career, and I actually contemplated giving up football. I was
really?
I was really that low, because I just felt I got no backing from the PFA, got no backing from like the FA as well, to go to the referee and make him look at the review or listen to the appeal. The club tried to do as much as they could. YZ, Ray, Theo at the time as well. And I just said, fuck this. I can't be around this, because I thought I was affecting the boys as well. you know, when you've got kind of, I wasn't sulking, wasn't myself.
Mm.
So Ray pulled me and he said, listen, I can tell there's something wrong with you. And he spoke to my dad as well. He said, I think it's good for you to go and get away for like 3 or 4 days. So I said, maybe that's the best thing. So me and my wife, we went away, went on a trip somewhere for 4 or 5 days, and really had a good long kind of think about what I wanted to do with my career. It's been something I've done all my life since I was 9 years old when I signed with QPR, and football's always been part of my life. And as I said, that was a real tough period for me in my career and in my head mentally as well, in whether I should carry on with football, because that dream had been taken away from me, and I was really upset at the time. But I also knew that it was a big day for the club and for all the players. So I think that 3 or 4 days going away helped me realize that, as selfishly as I could be in not wanting to be there, I had to be there for the group. And I came back and tried to involve myself as much as possible. The club involved me in a team photo. They got me a suit. They made me travel all the way there. And even on the day, it was still a tough day for me. Like being in the changing room beforehand, going out on the actual pitch. It was tough for Muzzy and Tony as well. You know, we were
There's
all
3 big characters there, 3 very big characters for that dressing room minute to not be involved.
Yeah, and it was tough for us. I think being a younger player, you could probably get away with it a little bit more because you know you've got an extended amount of time to maybe rectify it or get back to a cup final or get whatever it is. You're going to have a longer career. But all 3 of us were coming towards the end of our careers, and it was a day that the fans will remember, and we will remember in different ways. You know, because it was just different emotions going through our heads that day. Anyway.
Well, Tony Warner said that he walked out with the team in his suit.
Yeah.
But he said he was still pissed when he did that.
Yeah.
Because he'd been out the night before with you and Muscat. How does that work? Did you get the nod to go out, or did you just sneak out?
No, I think, as I said, Wisey was pretty good like that. We went for a couple in Cardiff. We had a couple of mates there. Tony had a couple of mates there, and we just joined up with them. And that was it. We went out and we just tried to drown our sorrows a little bit, but also not interfere with the team. We were staying a little bit. We were in the same hotel, but we were staying in different rooms away from them on a different floor. So we weren't going to interrupt their preparations or anything like that.
Any Millwall fans go, hang on, they obviously knew you was injured and suspended. I swear that's Big Dan, Tone, and Muzzy out of the night out.
Actually, I think we ran into a couple, but there was a lot of Millwall fans that came up on the day as well.
Yeah, I've travelled up on the day. Yeah,
yeah, a lot of Millwall fans turned up on the day. I know that Millwall and Cardiff, my friends were there as well, and Millwall and Cardiff don't really have a good relationship anyway. And I think there was rumours that Cardiff were out the night before looking for Millwall fans and stuff like that. So I'm not sure. We tried to stay as close to the hotel, and there was a couple of friends that we had that were living in Cardiff and showed us around as well.
Oh, nice. So obviously we lose the game by 3 goals to 0. And like you said, you want to be a professional. You want to be, involved as much as you can. But was there a little bit of a sense of, fucking please, that's over, really? You can get back to business for yourself as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I remember in the changing room afterwards, we kind of were all a little bit disappointed, but we kind of gathered ourselves and said, look, we've still got so much to offer for this group of players. We can still go on and achieve something. We were so desperate to get back to the Premier League as well. There was a couple of years where the boys got close prior to me getting there as well. They finished just outside the playoffs, and they had some good players back then as well with Mill. I remember, I think it was one against West Ham or Birmingham where they nearly got through, did they, in the playoffs?
Yeah.
And they missed out desperately, and we'd achieved getting through to the FA Cup final for the first time, so we wanted to say, okay, now we can push on and get this club into the Premier League for the first time in its history as well.
Well, did you think that the cup run was a hindrance? Do you think we might have gone up because we was there or thereabouts, but we fell away obviously from the playoffs because of the cup run? Do you think that played a part in us not going up that season? Do you think we could have done if we hadn't done so well in the cup?
Yeah, I do. I agree. I also think that our squad depth wasn't as big as what it could have been to try and cater for both of them as well, Dan, if you understand what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
I feel we might have put too many eggs in the basket of getting through to the FA Cup final because we knew what the draw, what the run was going to be for us, and we either drew or we lost games in the championship that year that we should have won. There was a couple of games that I was really disappointed with, where I think there was one against Watford at home, and there was another one where I thought, fuck, on our day we can easily get the 3 points. We don't have to even compare ourselves against this team, and we dropped points unnecessarily, and I do think that was a hindrance. But I do also think that there was a couple of niggly injuries that we got. There was some suspensions, as you do in the season. That's normal. But I just didn't think we had the squad depth there for players to kind of step in and keep the ball rolling for us.
Yeah. So just wind it back a little bit. You say you was on loan at Mill at first. You come down for the original month. After that month, was it then agreed that you was going to join the club? Did they say to you, "We want you on a permanent"?
Yeah, well, Wisey had already kind of been having private talks with me to say, look, we want to make this deal permanent. It's basically the agreement between the two clubs. Now you've got to speak to West Brom, what they want for you. We've got to speak to Theo and what the club and the board of directors can offer as well. So there's a lot of stuff that we've got to try and iron out. And I said, look, I'm willing to come back down there. I'm back home in London where my family is. I love playing for the club. I enjoy the group. I haven't enjoyed my football like this in a long time, and I really feel we can push on with this group and not only get in the playoffs, but push through and try and get in the Premier League. And he said, well, let's see if the club are all talk or they actually want to push this through and start bringing in players that are going to help us get there.
Yeah.
So on my part, it was very easy. I kind of laid my cards on the table and said, oh, if we can get this done, let's get it done. And in the end, I think Theo ironed out some clauses with West Brom if we got up and stuff like that they'd have to pay extra money, and they got me on the cheap in the end, which was good for me, but also good for Mill because they could spend some money on other players and bring them in the summer.
Well, on the cheap, yes, but obviously Millwall predominantly don't pay hardly any money. I think our record signing still to this date is only 1.5. I think we paid $500,000 for you. Could have rose up to about $750,000. So
Yeah.
it was. I was obviously happy with that. It's good business, but it's still quite in the terms of it being 2004 as well. It's not. That's quite a lot for Mill to spend. But I know what you mean. It's not. It's not a lot of money, really, is it?
Yeah, because when I first spoke to West Brom, they were saying, well, we want to recuperate at least 1 million for you. And I was like, well, I'm not playing here. You're paying me. I've fallen out with the manager. I think if we can all be sensible about this, then you can understand where Millwall are coming from. They haven't got a lot of money. And what you're going to ask for, they're not going to be capable of paying. So there was a lot of talks between my agent and then the club. And then I went to the West Brom chairman to say, look, can we please iron this out for the sake of myself? The club can move on. You've brought in another striker now. So they said, look, we'll try and come to some agreement. There was a week or so, I think, just before we played, I have a crew or someone away that it looked like it wasn't going to get done. And Theo managed to get it done. And I was thankful. I was really happy that it got done. Because as you said, 500 grand is a lot of money to Millwall. It's not a lot of money to West Brom. We've been back and forth from the Premier League getting their parachute payments. But to Millwall, to splash out that money was a lot of money.
Did you have any dealings with him, Theo? I know he's the chairman, but did you?
Yeah, I spoke with him a lot, in the sense that he was trying to push me to go to the club and do a backhand deal and palm money off that they owed me. And I said, look, I'm not going to do that because I've got to think about my family as well. It's not you guys that are paying me that money or you're going to lose out on it. But he was kind of saying, well, if you palm some of that money off, then we can pay less. I said, I'm not going to do that, Theo, because you wouldn't do that. You're a business guy yourself. But he was a wheeler and dealer. He was a character. Him and Wise, he used to go at it all the time.
Did they?
Yeah. But I think that was kind of the end of Wisey, that he couldn't deal with it in the end because Theo was a guy that wanted to push the club up. He was a business guy as well. He knew what made sense, but he was a wheeler and dealer as well. And if he could cut off corners here and there, he would try to. But that was the end for Wisey in the end, because he wanted to push on as a manager. He wanted to try and progress and develop, and he thought he could do that with Millwall. But in the end, I think that was his downfall.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a strange situation because, as I say, we spoke to a lot of players that were in the sort of the 2000, 2001, up until when you joined and just beyond as well. And it seems like an unbelievable sort of 4 or 5 years for the club. But we've heard, conflicting stories where the issues in 2002 with the Birmingham game, by the time Wise had taken over and was taking it forward, the wheels had started to come off a little bit in sense of him and Theo arguing and where the club was going. So maybe the FA Cup final sort of glazed over that a little bit. But another problem that the FA Cup, well, it's not a problem, another obstacle that the FA Cup final brought along with it was obviously the year after, when we could have probably had another go at getting promoted, was the Uefa Cup campaign.
Yes, definitely. And you talk about a team that's got through to the FA Cup final now, a team that's now in the Europa, the qualifications for the Europa League, a team that just missed out on playoffs. So now you're being seen as other clubs as a team that are trying to maybe spend a little bit of money or have money and want to push through. So that sets you back a little bit, because other clubs start to take liberties with players that you might want to bring in, or players that are interested in coming to your club, but we're not being run in a professional manner, or clubs are now starting to ask for an extra 250 on top of a player that is worth 100 grand or 200 grand, 300 grand that Millwall agreed before. And then I know I spoke with Whitey about this a lot, and Ray, and they said sometimes it was a hindrance in us getting through to that FA Cup final because our actual standing as a club went up so much. And it's not Millwall's the most liked football club in England anyway, but now we're starting to be a little bit more successful, and whether it be people throughout the FA or people around England or clubs or owners, whatever it is, trying to put their thumbs on top of our heads and saying, no, you've got to stay there. And I really thought that was the case a lot of the time in that year.
Yeah, and like players started to leave it. Obviously, like say, success attracts attention, and Tim Cahill leaves the club. Stephen Reed had already left the club. Tony Warner leaves the club, and so a new sort of core of players started to come in. We started the season off very well. The following season, 2004, 2005, you didn't score on the opening day, but you scored in the next 3 games: Leicester at home, Reading away, and someone else at home that escapes me. I've got it written down there somewhere. But big Dan off to a flyer in the 2004, 2005. 3 goals in the first 4 games.
Yeah, it was strange because we weren't actually playing too well as well, Dan. It was like, we brought in a new group of players. Jody Morris had come in. We brought a couple of Canadians in as well.
We'll ask you about them in a bit.
Yeah, there was another striker that we brought in, Scott Dobie, I think it was. So we were still trying to find our way a little bit, but we weren't playing particularly well. We'd been out to Canada on a long pre-season trip. We come back, and as you said, we also had the Europa to look forward to. That was still being discussed, where we were going to play it. Are we going to play at home first, away first? There was obviously a lot of worries about us traveling over to Hungary. And then I actually got a double hernia operation as well. They were struggling with it in the off season, and they tried to put it off, but then it come back, and I had to get the injury sorted out to get operation done.
Yeah, because you scored 3 of the first 4, but then after that, the next goal you scored after that wasn't until November, because obviously you was out. You'd been out injured, hadn't you? Did you have the operation?
Yeah, it was funny. I had the operation, and I didn't really recover as well as they thought I'd recover, and they thought it possibly been my back again. I'd had 2 back operations earlier on in my career, and they started to thought that it could be linked to that again, and it was a frustrating kind of 3 or 4 months for me in trying to get back onto the pitch.
Just want to talk about, say, we've spoke in depth about a lot of other players, but new players started to appear at the club. So let's talk about a few of them. You mentioned them briefly then, the Canadians, Adrian Seriou and Josh Simpson. Adrian Seriou, just a random. That can't happen at Millwall. He came in. I remember his debut was his home debut, Leicester at home. He had a weldy. He had an absolute rocket of a long throw, and he looked like he was going to be unbelievable, but he wasn't, was he?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's funny how it come across because we went to Vancouver, Canada. We've been invited by some consortium in Canada that were inviting Hearts from Scotland, us and a Canadian select team that we were going to play in a like mini tournament over there. We went to Vancouver. That was my first time in Canada, and it was blisteringly hot. And we had a hard pre-season over there. And we managed to play Hearts. I think we won that 1-0, and then we played the select team. And incidentally, it had Josh Simpson, who played very, very well for the select team, and it had Adrian Seriou, who did pretty well, but Wisey had noticed that he could throw the ball like a grenade. He could throw it from the halfway line, and it would launch in a 6-yard spot. So he obviously liked him, and he spoke to the Canadians about what it would cost or what it would be to bring him over. And I think it was literally nothing. It was just sorting out visas and stuff like that. And I think it was within 2 weeks, they were over in South London with us, training with us, and they were like rabbits caught in headlights straight away. But I remember that first game because I think the goal we scored was Jody scored, and I'd flicked it on, and it was from an Adrian Seriou throw-in where he launched it in, and Leicester were like, "What the is going on here?" And he launched that ball in. I flicked it on, and little Jody managed to get onto the second ball and stab it home.
Some player in, when he Jody Morris.
Yeah, Jody was a good player. He was a good player. He was very gifted. He'd been through a couple of moves where he was disappointed after his Chelsea kind of fallout. He didn't kick on. But a player that had the ability to play at a high level, and he was very astute tactically as well. And Wisey brought him in, and I thought he would have been a lot more influential than he was, but maybe it was the players around him that he struggled with as well. But a good player nonetheless that was a good addition to our group.
Getting back to the Canadians, I took you away from it. What was they like? You say those rabbits in headlights. Did you have many dealings with them, like just socially? How did they cope with South London life?
Well, as I said, because we had a good team spirit anyway, they had to jump on board with our banter, which they had no idea what was going on, or they couldn't even understand what we were talking about. We used to call Josh Chuck. He was Chuck the American, even though I pointed out to many of the guys that Canadians are different than Americans. It's like calling a Scottish person an English person, but he was still known as Chuck. And then Adrian was just known as Rasta. We called him the disaster Rasta. But he was very calm, collective, sometimes a little bit too laid back. And again, I think they were just, we didn't really think thoroughly enough about how these boys were going to be introduced to not only living in England, but to playing for Millwall Football Club.
The disaster Rasta, what was he? Was that because of his ability on the pitch, or?
I think it was a little bit of both. Just the way he handled himself. He was very laid back. He was late for certain things, and I still now he lives here in Toronto, and he talk about his time living in South London. He was like, "Holy shit, I would never ever go back to that place in my life." I don't think he had a good time living wherever he lived.
Oh mate, that is absolutely classic. Another character from that squad, and I've met him a couple of times, and I've heard him on other podcasts. Graham Stacks, that's an absolute crackpot, isn't he?
Oh yeah, I think he came in from Arsenal. I think Wisey managed to nab him from Arsenal, like the youth team or the under-20s there, and he was a lively boy as well. He was a DJ like myself, a DJ back in the day, and a typical goalkeeper. He couldn't sit still. He was always talking, always bantering. He loved the banter with us. He settled in really well with us, banter-wise. But another character that was welcomed in by the group. And it was, I feel that we brought too many players in, Dan. When you bring in too many players, it's very hard to be consistent and understand what the group's about. and
Yeah.
you could always bring in 2 or 3, I think, and try and settle them in a lot quicker. But when you bring an influx of like 7 to 8 guys, like we did that year, it was difficult for not only the players that had already been there already, but the players more so coming in.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. It can upset the dynamics of a good little group
Yeah.
bonding sort of thing, can't it? So you missed out on Hungary,
Yes.
Ferencvaros, which did you not even travel?
I didn't even travel in the end, and um, as I said, I'd had the double hernia operation, and they were kind of thinking that maybe I could travel to get limited minutes. But in the end, it wasn't on. I was still struggling. The doctor said no. I think the first game was at home, wasn't it? Or was it away?
First game was away, yeah.
Right, yeah. So it was the second game, which I think I came on for limited minutes in the second half, and I was still struggling with my injury then. But Wisey had asked, like said, can you manage to get some minutes and give us something? And I managed just getting on for a few minutes, but I think that the game was basically over by then.
Yeah. So you missed quite a lot of the, say, after a blistering start, you missed a fair whack of the season. You come back, your first goal back against the enemy, which will always put you in the good books of Millwall fans. A 1-0 win, you come off the bench against West Ham. I put it up on social media earlier. I don't know if you saw it, but another Muscat cross, another trademark Danny Dichio bullet header.
Yeah, I remember that game because, as I said, it was a frustrating year for me, and I think we'd lost to West Ham away that year in the first game, and then we'd obviously come back to the Den, and we'd want to put one over on them, and again it was a tight game, and it was a late goal that I'd scored, and I just remember afterwards as well, we got the 1-0 win, and we was going, myself and Jody were going back through. I don't know, we went back through the Old Kent Road, but there was a couple of Millwall pubs close that were full of Millwall outside the pubs afterwards, and we got stopped at a traffic light, and I thought, this is going to get messy here. And they'd obviously noticed Jody in the car because he'd wound down the window and said hello to him, but then they noticed me, and they started to come over by the cars, by the road, and they stopped all the traffic and they were singing a song. So that was a good moment that we stopped the traffic on the Old Kent Road there.
I'd say, good job you scored the winner, mate. They weren't coming over for a bad reason. They're coming over to sing your praises.
Could have been another way around, yeah, if we lost again.
So that season, obviously, was your last at the club. Was your contract up, or?
No, so it was interesting because, as you said, there was a lot of off the field dynamics that were going on with Wisey and Theo, and they were wanting to push on, and they wanted to bring more players in. The season wasn't going as intended, and Ray had spoken to me, and he said, "Look, I don't think things are going to end up well here." And so I said, "What are you talking about?" He says, "I honestly don't think things are going to end up with it. They're arguing back and forth. They're not agreeing on certain stuff. There's possible new owners that are thinking about coming in as well." I thought, fuck, I've just moved back down to London to be part of this club and try and push on and get to where we want to get, which is the Premier League after last year. And now you're telling me that this could be the end of things with you lot here, like with Wisey and Ray, who I'd basically come down to play for as well. And then there was more talk of players being moved on or players not being contracted, and it was a real mess at the end of the season. I didn't like it. I really didn't like it because there was no clarity coming from the club.
Yeah.
And also, Wisey had kind of let it known to the players as well that this is going to be his last year.
Right.
So it was
We still finished 10th that season.
Yeah, we still did, but I still feel damn we could have finished higher. As we all say, whether you're a fan or player, we should always finish higher. But I really feel with that group that we had that year, it wasn't as good as the team we had the year before, but I still feel with that group we could have finished higher, not having the FA Cup final as a hindrance, not having the Europa because we went out early in that as well as a hindrance, and push on, but we didn't.
We spoke to Matty Lawrence as well.
Yeah,
and he got the same feeling. I think he left just after you, but he said it was going that way in the end, which is a shame. What What were Wise and Theo arguing over? If they both wanted to take the club forward, did you know? Or
I don't know if it was money. I don't know if it was players that they're bringing in, infrastructure of the club, and Wisey was on about bringing new stuff into the training ground. And we were happy with what we were doing at the training ground, but obviously Wisey was used to different resources and different facilities. But we were more than happy. The pitches were beautiful condition. We had what we needed, but I don't know if he wanted more staff or just more support, and he felt he wasn't getting that. So Wisey had
so,
made his decision, and I think Theo had made his decision as well.
right, so Wise leaves the club, and then did you leave after Wise? How did it come back going to Preston?
So through that summer, I'd heard rumblings on the wall that the club had basically been trying to wheel and deal me out of there. So I spoke to Theo, and Theo denied everything. I spoke to Ray, and Ray wasn't in touch with anyone because he'd left as well. And decided to go through the summer. The club were, in my opinion, struggling to find someone to be the manager that year. They approached a couple of people I heard, and they hadn't agreed on it. Again, that could have been money or whatever was going on with the club. And then Steve Claridge came in.
Right.
And Steve Claridge was obviously a hugely respected guy at Millwall, a guy that I'd loved watching on the TV. I'd met him a couple of times just through playing against him, and a guy that I thought was a nice guy, respected guy. And he basically said, he was very honest with me. He said, look, the club are trying to trim the wage bill. There's a lot of boys on money here that the club feel that they need to move on and move in a different direction. And he said, I'm going to be honest with you, Dan, you're one of them as well. He said, I'd love for you to stay here and be part of what I'm trying to do here. But my hands are tied. So I was kind of not disappointed in Steve. I was happy that he was honest with me, and he was being upfront. But at the same time, I just moved all my family back down to London. We were living in a house down there. And now I'm getting phone calls from my agent that there's clubs up north or there's clubs in the Midlands that want to sign me and push on for the Premier League. I was like, oh my God, I don't know what's going on. I was in like a real mix up because I didn't know what to do. There was still so much uncertainty at Millwall, through players, through staff.
We'll say Claridge only lasted 35 days, didn't he, before he got removed?
And I actually felt sorry for him because Steve, he wasn't supported either. There was no real staff there for him. He was kind of by himself. There was a couple of guys that had been brought up through either the academy or guys that he used to play with, but there was nothing concrete going on there. The pre-season was the actual setup and organisation of it was all out the window. No one knew what was going on. We didn't know whether we were going away. We didn't know what was happening, what day we were going to start.
Sounds like the whole structure of the club was just in a transitional period. No one really knew what the fuck was going on, did they?
They didn't, and that was what was upsetting for me then, because as a player, or if you're in a business or whatever it is, you can get a feeling of things ain't going right. There's something going on here, and I felt that at Millwall. And again, I had to say to Steve, I said, look, I've got to put my family first here. I don't want to move anywhere because I'm happy here, but the club are basically saying that they want to move on from me. And he said, I feel it's in your best interest, Danny, if you can find yourself a club. So that was me on the transfer lookout again. And I said, I was happy down in London. I was happy playing for Millwall. But the club, as you said, the organisation and what was going on, it was all up in the air. And I felt sorry for the fans because they probably didn't know what was going on behind the scenes. And I think it's like within a week, I'd been on the road up to Preston because they were one of the clubs. There was another club, I think it was Sheffield Wednesday. There was another club in the Midlands.
Sorry, how old was you at this point?
I think I was 30, just turned 31 or 30. I was like 30 years old. So I was like, I still want to give myself a chance of of playing in the Premier League again, or getting a team to the Premier League that's never been there. And Millwall were one of them teams that had come down with. And then Preston were another team, a very old team. And I spoke with Billy Davis, who was the coach at the time. He said, "Look, you've played against us over the years. I like you as a player. I feel you're one of the missing parts for us, as managers usually do. They give you the spill to try and sign for them.
Yeah.
It's just a difficult decision for me because I'm settled down in London, but I'm at a club where I feel is going tits up. It just doesn't know where it's heading." He said, "Yeah, I agree with you. If you can come to some agreement with them, with Theo, and if they feel if they can get at least the full amount of money they paid for you back, then they're willing to do the deal." And that was it. It was kind of, I didn't even get to say goodbye to people at Millwall because I had my one conversation with Steve and in the office, and that was it. I got my stuff. And I was talking on the phone to him, and he said, "Look, the clubs are in talks, they're in negotiations. They want you to go up in the next couple of days," and that was it.
It's funny because when I looked on, obviously, I remember you playing. I looked on Wikipedia, but in my mind, you was at the club a lot longer. You was a very popular when I said you was coming on today on social media that you was going to be coming on. But he wasn't at Mill that long in hindsight. What could, if you could pick one memory, standout memory for you of playing for the club? Could you pick one?
You know what? I really I go back to that game at Tranmere where we were really disappointed that we had not put them to bed at home and we didn't get the result. And then it was a midweek game. We went back up to Tranmere and there was a lot of pressure. There was a lot of talk about they've had their chance, Millwall, but we had so much backing, not only from like local media and stuff, but we knew that we were taking a lot of fans up there as well. And I think that added to it as well, Dan, because we're a working men's club, Millwall, and I played for another working men's club at Sunderland who they thrive on their football team, and to go up to Liverpool midweek for a replay and put on a performance that we did, that was a real good game to play in because we played ever so well that day. And as I said, Chopper scored a lovely volley. Timmy scored a typical Timmy goal. But it was a great all-round team performance, and that really set us up for the semi-final against Sunderland. So that cup run was a real eye-opener for me because it was a bittersweet one because we had so much sweet going all the way to the semi-final, and then having that bitterness at the end where the referee didn't look at my appeal. But I suppose that's what careers are made of, like some people are lucky to have a career for so long like I did, and I've got to be respectful of that. But as I said, still never forgive that referee. But there was a lot of sweet moments in that lead up to that semi-final and getting the result there and seeing all the Millwall fans there that day was really great to see.
Yeah, it was an iconic. It was an iconic sort of era for the club, and you was part of that, mate. And you was very well respected and liked by the fans at Millwall. You went to Preston, obviously, for a couple of years, and then you made your way to where you are still now.
Yes. So I had a couple of good years at Preston. We got through to the playoffs in the first year I was there. The second year, we just missed out on playoffs, and then there was a turnaround there. And I said, "This is enough for me. I'm not continuing to move home with my young family. My boys at the time, my two young sons had moved 3 or 4 times. They've been in different schools, and I said, wherever I move next, I want to settle down with roots. And we'd always loved North America, so it was an idea of myself and my wife, who's got an American passport, to settle down and try and go and find a club in MLS. And there was a couple of clubs that had shown interest. I've been over to Chicago. We love Chicago. Been over to Los Angeles and had a look there. But Toronto had come in with a concrete offer for me to come over. Didn't need the green cards or other visas that other clubs were saying I needed. And settled in here. Mo Johnston, the ex-Celtic and Rangers striker, was their coach at the time. There was a huge English expat kind of society over here, which helped me settle in as well. But it's a place that we call home now. We love living here. My kids all speak Canadian with a Canadian twang. They keep trying to say they don't understand me when I'm talking or certain words I'm saying, but it's a good place to live. Very family orientated. The weather's cold as ashes here in the winter, but in the summer it's a very beautiful place to live. Very, very picturesque.
You've been there, must have been there over 10 years now, mustn't you? Around that.
This is I came here in 2007, so I think this is our 13th or 14th year.
And you are here a little bit of a legend over there.
Yes.
So correct me if I'm wrong. You went over and was that the first ever year of the Canadian MLS that founded that year?
It was. So MLS had been in play for a few years before I arrived, but Toronto, the team I was joining, it was their first year in the league, so they call it an expansion team. So I joined them four games after they started the season because Preston wouldn't let me go. They wouldn't let me go pre-season. They said we're still in season, and I spoke to the president at Preston, the owner, and he said, "Okay, you can go over now." So I missed the first 4 games.
Right.
They've been away for the first 4 games because they were still finishing their stadium. They built a new stadium.
Right.
And I joined for the first home game, and they hadn't scored a goal in their 4 away games.
Right.
So our first home game was my debut for them. And I managed to score a goal. It wasn't the best of goals. I bundled it in at the near post, but it was the first goal in Toronto FC's history. So they still sing my name at that exact minute of every game when they play your home games now. They sing out
really?
which is pretty interesting to hear every home game. My boys in the crowd, they love hearing it, but it's a little bit embarrassing for me at times. But
do they pronounce it Dichio or Dichio? Sorry, Dichio or Dichio over there?
They actually say Dichio. Yeah, there's a lot of Italians over as well, so they know how to pronounce it properly.
Course. It was a bit of a double whammy that game, though, wasn't it? Your debut. What else happened in the game?
Well, the old Millwall came out on me probably because just before half time, we've gone up for a challenge with the goalkeeper, and as we've come down, he thought I kind of put a physical challenge on him or tried to connect with the back of his head, and he tried to snap my leg from the ground. He tried to break it where my knee is, and I just lost it, and we went head to head, and I tried to bite his nose. I missed it, but it was
got sent off.
A good attempt. We had a little wrestle, handbags again, a little wrestle. There was a big melee, a lot of players involved, and the referee sent me off. And as I'm walking off the field, getting ejected off the field, the fans have all stood up on their seats and they're like roaring with laughter and clapping. This is the first time I've ever been applauded by the whole stadium for getting sent off.
I love a bit of drama over there. Well, the Americans, I'm obviously putting the Canadians in the same bracket, which you said don't do, but I just did. Yeah. So, what's your role now, though? You're still involved with Toronto?
Yes. So when I was in my final year, 2009, I'd already been doing my coaching badges in England up in Preston. I started my UEFA B, and then when I came over to here, I'd started doing my US licenses, and they knew that it was a pathway that I wanted to go after I'd finished playing, and they said, "Look, we'd love for you to hang around. If your contract's up at the end of this year, we have a spot for you within the first team as an assistant." And then eventually they said, after a year or so, would you like to take your own team? And I said, I would love that. As part of my development as a coach, I'd like to look after my own team. So they gave me the U19s, which is basically the U18s back home in England. And I was with them for 8 or 9 years, the under 19s. And now I'm working with the second team, the reserves. So I'm really happy working with the younger players that are coming through from the academy to the second team, getting them ready for when they hit the first team.
Nice. Well, mate, you've been around the block, haven't you? QPR, up to Sunderland, West Brom, Millwall, up to Preston, and now you finally settled down in Toronto. And it's been a pleasure to have you on, mate. I've really appreciated your time, and the fans are going to be over the moon to see that you're still flying a flag over there in Toronto.
No problem. We've seen some Millwall fans out here as well. So
do you know what? I saw a picture of you on the Millwall history face on the Facebook page. Someone put a picture up of you and him.
There's a fella that walks his dog where I walk my dog, and he stopped me like it was weirdly in the street one day, and I was like, "Do I know this fella?" And then he had a London accent, and we started speaking. He said, "Oh, you work with my boy. His boy plays football, and he said, you play for my club," and I was like, "Yeah, I play for plenty of clubs." And he said, "Yeah, I know that." He said, "But you play for Mill. I'm a Mill fan." I said, "Oh, good." So we got chatting about Millwall, and he said, "Is it possible to have a photo taken?" And we had a photo taken. He said, "I'm going to send this home to the Millwall Facebook page or the forum back home because my mates won't believe it. So it must be that fella from the park that I walked the dog at."
It was him. It was him, and that's all I needed, mate. That's the only sort of bait I needed. I was on it straight away, and here we are. It's been a pleasure, mate. I've really enjoyed your time. Thanks for joining us.
No problem. Thanks, Dan. Appreciate it.
Stop, man. Cheers, mate.